Hello and welcome to Soups and Sabers. My name is Jordan, and with me today is Chris. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing really good. It's leading up to Superman. We're talking Smallville today, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes, this episode that you're listening to here is releasing on June 1st as what I'm calling Superman Sundays, where we are going to be discussing and releasing Superman stuff up to the release of James Gunn's Superman movie that kicks off the DCU in July. So, kind of, kicking off June 1st. June 1st was originally going to be the first release of Soups and Sabers, but since we had everything ready to go, we decided to launch a little early and get started on that. So, kind of a fun way to commemorate it. And what better way to kick off talking about Superman and building up to Superman than to have our the season where he becomes Superman. We're talking Smallville season 10, which you had finished watching probably a few months ago now, but
hmm
just getting us back into recording these and getting them done, and we've been able to kind of spread those out, these last few out over the course of the last few months. So, uh, really excited to talk about this. I have spent the last weekend or so, rewatching, I would say almost half of the episodes of this season. I watched like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I watched like 11 of the 21 episodes. So more than half of the season. Just kind of
Nice.
picked some here and there to refresh myself. So this is actually probably the most prepared I will have been for the Smallville updates here as we get to your final the final season that you've watched here. So I guess let's just kind of start with I have a lot of notes going over some of the episodes and when people return and all this kind of stuff, but just general thoughts of season 10 and if you were satisfied by the end of it.
Yeah, I think they slow played the Lois and Clark thing. The in the beginning of the season, when you at the end of season 9, you thought you would kind of just go full speed with that, but I really enjoyed Lois and Clark kind of having their end game moment. I enjoyed Clark battling his doubt as his last real problem he had to get through to win the day against Darkseid. And I thought it was an interesting season. I don't know that it was perfect, but the finale really puts a weird taste in my mouth for several reasons. We'll talk about that. For the most part, it was perfect, and this is key decisions they made kind of stay with you. But yeah, it's a really good season of Smallville. I think this show gave me every Superman element that it hadn't already, and I mean, he's basically Superman in this season. I know we only see him in the suit for a very little bit at the end, but he's basically Superman, and it's cool to see Clark's growth finally get to this point.
Yeah, this season, started in 2010 and will finish in 2011. So we are actually, oh, the day we're recording this is the day before the 14th anniversary of the finale. So
Wow.
we're coming up on 14 years from the finale, but 15 years
Fortuitous
almost.
timing.
15 years almost since the premiere of the season. So yeah, I mean, this is crazy. I've talked about my story with it, I think, before, but the final season is kind of what got me back into Smallville. I had stopped watching probably when Rosenbaum left. I don't even know. I like I said, I first found it through like ABC Family, I'm pretty sure, is like they were playing reruns of Smallville after Dukes of Hazzard. And so it was like the John Snyder 2 hours there, watch Dukes of Hazzard, then watch Smallville. And then at some point I started watching it on WB, I think, and then fell off. And then I just remember hearing people complain about the finale. And, you know, I'd seen clips of the finale and like the final shirt rip and all that kind of stuff before I watched the finale and all that. And people just saying how bad the finale was. And I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to catch up and actually see every episode. Like, there was no way I'd ever seen every episode. I was, watching whatever ABC Family was playing at the time. I didn't have the DVDs, etc. So the summer of 2011, after the finale, um, the buzz of like the finale got me into buying the seasons, and I started buying the seasons. I think it was like 11 weeks or something that I had, and that was back before streaming, so I had to buy every season. And then season 10 wasn't out yet on DVD, but I found a way to watch it, if you know what I mean. And I watched all of season 10, and I was probably caught up by the fall, right? It was probably like, I think, August sometime that I was finished. So I ended up watching, like, in 2011, 14 years ago, I was watching a lot of Smallville and kind of got through it all. And I was somebody that was actually kind of pleased with it all. Like, I know we'll probably spend a good chunk of the time talking about the finale. That's also what most of my notes are about the finale. But because it is so controversial, because it is him becoming Superman. It is a thing here. But I felt pretty satisfied because I don't really know what else people wanted, I guess, is the case. Like, he is pretty much already Superman in everything but
Yeah.
name, right? Like you said, pretty much by season 8 when they're calling him the Blur. Like, he's pretty much Superman at that point. But he does get a new look. He gets a new costume in this season with the, red leather jacket with the S on it. He gets a he, he flies in the finale for the first time, but he's doing almost everything that Superman does. He's already faced Doomsday. He's already faced, some of his biggest foes, Zod. Uh, by the time we get to this season, where he goes on and actually faces Darkseid, and we get to see, a version of Darkseid and Apocalypse and all that in here. But I understand if people are like, "Oh, we didn't get a good look at Tom Welling in the suit." That was because he didn't want to wear the suit, so it was kind of like this CGI thing that they did, and clever like shooting around him to put him like. There's the one where he like saves Lois on the plane, and you only see from like his neck up, but you see like the flat, like the cape billowing in the wind, and you're like, "Yeah, that's just added CG because they don't have Welling in a suit." But I don't know what else people would have wanted other than him just becoming Superman earlier. But I feel like this is like the logical conclusion for the show. Um, and, I'm thinking about this too because Chris, I'm starting. We mentioned it last year, and I've been kind of building up to it and making sure everything's perfect for my eventual start of Enter Flash time. When I go back and rewatch The Flash and do episodes for the podcast, that's another, I would say, final episode that people have problems with, and I'm starting to think I'm sensing a trend of it just being
You
hard to
can't
pull
please
off.
anybody.
No, I was just gonna say hard to pull off final episodes of superheroes because you run a few risks, right? Um, I guess you could do it the Arrow way, which is where he dies, and I guess people were mostly okay with that. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
what was
but
the
he
censoring?
dies not even in the finale. Like he
I know.
dies, and then it's
That's
a
not even in
show
his
about him
episode.
being dead. Yeah. Well, before before they even deal with his funeral, they have a backdoor pilot for a show that had no chance of coming out. Uh, the Canary Show, and then they have like the whole fallout of him dying. So, the Arrowway is ridiculous. I actually think Superman and Lois got it perfect, but there's a ton of people who don't like that. So
That's the
that's
other show I was thinking of because,
yeah.
like, so here's the thing, right? You can go the Smallville route and do the Smallville and Flash finales feel very similar to me because they are essentially the hero continues saving the world. And I feel like that's what you have to do for these heroes, right? Like, it's so hard to wrap this up because, especially Smallville, is him becoming Superman. You can't wrap it up in really, I would say, any satisfying way because people would think he wasn't Superman long enough, but it's because it's setting him up for he's doing all of it off screen. Like, that is the thing, right? Like, that is
Well,
the
he's
goal of the
Superman
show.
already, though. This is why Smallville has such an interesting battle with itself,
Yeah,
because he's beaten Darkseid, he's beaten Brainiac, Metallo, all these villains that Bizarro. He's got all the Superman rogue, even Mixie, even if we want to count that. Like there's what rogue has he not gone through in Smallville to get through? You
Parasite.
know,
There's no Parasite, right?
there's no Parasite. Okay, Rudy's not there, but hey, okay, he's gone through most of the Superman stuff. So, like, to say he's not Superman in the show is like being a little facetious. Like, he didn't become Superman with a suit. He didn't have all the stuff that Superman has. But come on, he had a Fortress of Solitude. He
Right.
had Jor-El. He was doing everything but flying. Come on, and
Right.
then
So
he
yeah.
flies.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, for me, it's like maybe that's part of it for them is that he took on so many of his rogues. But you already know that before the finale. So again,
Yeah,
I don't know like if maybe it's how simple it was for him to just push Apocalypse out of the sky. I can understand that complaint.
that complaint makes sense to me because it's like Apocalypse. It's not like I'm okay with Superman having the strength to move a planet. My problem with that is this is a guy who just got over the hurdle of mental gap of flying. So it's like it's a little too much too soon for that. But I have no problem with Superman having that kind of a strength because Superman has that kind of a strength.
Yeah, so I can understand that, but like again, like I don't know how else you end this show other than like the fact
It's
that
the other
the,
characters.
the hero continues doing his thing. And it's the same thing with the Flash, right? Like you can't
Yeah.
end the Flash with him dying because like we've seen most of his run-ins with some of his rogues too, but you're like, okay, I don't want Barry to die. So uh having him have like a happy ending in the sense of he shares his gifts with other people, but also still continues fighting the good fight
It
is
is kind
a
of
good
funny
ending.
that Jay Garrick is throughout this whole show, and like Barry's like 34, and he's like, "All right, I'm done."
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, "I'm done. I'm gonna give the Speed Force to a bunch of randos. I'm done. See you later." But for me with the Smallville thing, though, it's very much the other characters. It's the Lex Luthor memory wipe. It's Tess
Yes, yeah.
dying.
There's
It's
some.
it's the decisions they made that ruined so much of what happened through the 10 seasons. Like, why bring back Lex just to wipe his memory? Because his connection with Clark was the whole show for 7 seasons.
Yeah, so there's a few things there. Let's back it up a bit. We have the season is kind of like you said, culminating to the return of Lex. So we start off that season 10 premiere and Clark had just finished fighting Zod and was stabbed with the blue kryptonite or whatever, and Lois saves him. But while he's dying, he has like a vision of Lex in the cornfield. And later in this episode, it is a Lex clone that gets out and is like older, right? Like he's
Mm-hmm.
aged. Um, he steals Lois and like hangs her on that scarecrow thing from like the first season, first episode, and paints the S on her shirt. Um, so we have this whole backstory of Lex's clones, Tess's kind of loving one as a son, pretty much, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that type of story that goes on throughout the show. But then we also have Cat Grant getting hired at the Daily Planet. We have
Oh, she was so annoying.
we have
She was the
Deadshot.
worst.
We have Deadshot in the Suicide Squad. What did you make of this Suicide Squad in
Uh,
in Smallville?
I they did their best. It's not my favorite element of the show. I think it's a little silly. It's like Smallville's really weird because, like, I was talking about this with mom the other night because we were watching Superman 78,
Yeah,
and we were comparing the origin with Smallville because she's been watching Smallville, and I said Smallville does things really, really well, or they do things just very horribly, and there's no in between. So I don't know how to complain properly about a show like Smallville with some of these things because I already know 10 seasons in, they do things really well or really badly, and there's no in between. There's no like nuance of like, oh, well, you could have an opinion here. No, the show went off the rails for a little bit. It came back. It's what Smallville does. So, I don't know. My long winded way of saying I don't know.
yeah. I mean, you have Deadshot, who's played by we got Bradley Stryker playing the Deadshot, and then we also are going to have Deathstroke in this season as well.
With the
But
cheesiest lines you could imagine for Deathstroke. And
I feel bad for him too because the actor is so good because he's one of he's in Battlestar Galactica and he's so good in that. But Michael Hogan, but
mhm.
Slade Wilson in this is like, I don't know, in his 60s. It's kind of an odd choice
Well, it's
for
weird though, because we saw Slade Wilson in his 60s about 10 years later in Titans, and it works pretty well. And this doesn't work at all. This is not Slade Wilson. We're going to call this guy by the comic book name, and
yeah.
you're going to like it. And this whole element of the show didn't work with me. It didn't jive with me. I mean, the emotions that I got out of this season with like the 200th episode, that's what worked for me. Clark and Lois, that's what worked for me. Some of this other stuff, absolute nonsense. Like I said, what they do poorly, they do really badly, but they commit to it. They say this is what we're doing, and they don't backtrack. They don't retcon things. They just say, "Hey, remember that horrible episode? We're gonna do it again."
We get we also get the reveal that Tess is Lutessa and she is the illegitimate child of Lionel Luthor.
Yeah, that's annoyed me.
And she was left at like a that is run by Granny Goodness for whatever reason.
Yeah, it was like we need to get more Apocalypse. We need to get more Darkseid in there, and we need to get more Luther
Oh
stuff
my
in there. It was
goodness,
very
frozen pearl.
contrived. Yeah, you were gone for like 30 seconds, so I was just like, we'll figure it out in editing, and I just kept going.
Yeah, I was just saying like yeah, that we got the Granny Goodness running the orphanage and Tess finding
Yeah,
out she's a Luthor. Did that shock you at all? I forget when that was revealed this
uh,
season, right? Like it wasn't known before that for us, right?
wasn't it revealed at the end like of season 9? Wasn't there like a trace of that storyline in season 9?
I don't know.
I think there was a put like a stinger after like at the end of one of the episodes. That had to do with because I'm pretty sure. I think there was a hint of it in season 9. Could be wrong.
But she's also her middle name is Lena Luthor. Is Lena, so she's pretty much. They added the Lutessa part on there, so we know how they got to the name Tess. But she's pretty much Lena Luthor.
Well, they're basically doing with names whatever they want. Jimmy Olsen, James Olsen. They do whatever they
Yeah,
want with
yeah.
these names, and they I thought this was a little contrived, and I thought it was a way to get the Luthor story and the Darkseid story all together in one little package. I thought it
Definitely
was
contrived in
convenient.
the sense that in season 8, it's pretty alluded that Tess had slept with Lex.
Yeah,
So you're getting a little Game of Thrones in here.
get Rod on, get our Game of Thrones specialist.
Yeah, so that's fun. But in that episode with Slade Wilson, we have the return of Arthur Curry, and we get introduced to his wife Mira for the first time in this show. So that was fun getting them back in the show because this final season seemed like they tried to find a way to get almost everybody they could back into this.
Yeah, they got all the hits. You had Hawkman, you had Arthur and
Stargirl.
Mara. Yeah, they really had all the hits in there. And I think my favorite episode was probably the 200th episode, where you
Homecoming?
see, yeah, and you see Brainiac, and you're like, wait a second, and it's like completely twists your expectations of what's going to happen in the episode, and it was a creative way to do that.
Yeah, Homecoming is definitely one of the best of the season. You have Clark and Lois going to the reunion. We get the return of Bug Boy too from episode 2.
Yeah, we do.
He comes back and it's like telling Lois how thankful he is for Clark for helping him.
Yeah, Lois went through it in this reunion, and partly like that's her own fault because she's like, I
She was
was
there
here
for
for
5
16
days.
days or 5 days, 16 days. And she's like, yeah, I went to school here. It's like, no, you didn't. um, so she kind of put her foot in her mouth with that kind of thing. But I felt bad for her because she was like in the shadow of Lana in this episode very heavily, and in the shadow of Chloe even. And this is an awkward episode for Lois. Like we talk, like the story's about Clark, but it's a very awkward episode for Lois.
Yeah, she has a little bit of a tough time with it, but Clark makes sure he like gives her a dance and stuff, right? Like they have a good little ending scene here. Now, but we get Brainiac 5.0 who comes
Mm-hmm.
with the Legion ring and he takes Clark through his past, present, and future. He shows Clark what happened for real the night Jonathan died. So this is where he kind of gets, Clark's been thinking he was the reason his dad died because of the powers and the power
Mm-hmm.
switch that happened. But really it was,
Damn old
Jonathan was
Lionel.
so worked up from, confronting Lionel, that he has the heart attack. He shows him like what's going on with Oliver in the present and then his future. And this is one of the best bits of the episode, right? Is that he goes forward into the future and we get like the newspaper that says Superman saves blah 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 or whatever, and then Lois is like, oh, you're supposed to be wearing the glasses, and he even runs into his future self and sees
Yeah.
what he is going to be looking like. So
And
that was a lot of fun.
his future self was so like on top of things. He was like, yeah, I know your past me. It makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. But the next episode, Isis, or one of the next ones, Lois gets possessed by the Isis god, and all that kind of. So you have that weird Egyptian plot going on throughout this as well. But we also get the return of Lionel, through this method of like Clark having a mirror box, or Lionel leaving Tess a mirror box that somehow brings whoever's doing it, right, to the alternate Earth, like Earth 2. And you get alternate Clark, who is raised as Ultraman instead of and he's like Clark Luthor instead of Kent. So raised by the
I don't
Luthor.
understand why he was named Clark. That
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense.
that's a tough one. Maybe Lionel just liked the name, but usually he goes with the L's, so it is a little odd.
Well, yeah, you would think there'd be an L. But other than that, though, I mean, Clark was the maiden name of Martha. So
Yeah. So maybe Lionel still had the crush on her and named him after
okay,
her. Yeah.
yeah, but didn't the Kents have like a much different, darker fate in this? So I don't know. Yeah, that Clark though does not mess around.
No. No, he does not. And he comes back again later in the season as well, right? Where we have for some reason they decide to spend the episode Kent, which is right near the end of the season. Bring him back. Clark Luthor returns, and Clark gets sent back to Earth 2, and then he has like a talk with Jonathan about how he was raised and all that kind of stuff. Just which is fine. It's just one of those things where it's like that's a weird way to like. I thought we handled the Clark Luthor stuff, but it came back. I forgot it came back.
Yeah, the very next step.
We also have like Lucas Grabeel come back as young Lex, which is the um he's actually mixed with Lex and Clark's DNA, and he is Alexander. He starts going by the name Connor, and he becomes Connor Kent, becomes Superboy. So that was their way of having Superboy in the show. So I thought that was a pretty. I
I did like
actually liked
that.
it. Yeah, I thought that was clever.
I
And
did like that.
getting Lucas Grabeel, who had played young Lex at some point, I thought was a really cool move to bring him back to.
Yeah, I don't think I registered that it was the same actor, but that is cool. I liked that something not annoying came from the clone storyline. Because the
Yeah,
clone storyline was, you really felt bad for Tess for this storyline because she was really just trying to like
have a family.
fix her family. She was trying to undo the past, like, and she was like so like determined to coddle this Alexander to the point where he never becomes this monster. But I think it becomes pretty evident that he was always going to become who he was. Like it was kind of set in stone.
Yeah. Uh, then we have one of my favorite episodes of the show. We have Booster as Booster Gold comes in. And this is what I've been looking forward to talking about here. But
The
we got
hero
Booster
of
Gold.
tomorrow.
He comes in and this is one of my first exposures to Booster. And we talked about it recently on the DC Hero suit draft with Andy DeGenova. I picked Booster Gold from Smallville as one of my options, and this is also where we get a young
Blue
Blue
Beetle.
Beetle. Jaime
Hmm.
Reyes gets introduced here as well. This was written by Jeff Johns, directed by Tom Welling, and I think it's just one of the best episodes of the season. And I just want to shout out Always Hold On to Smallville. They just released this episode a few weeks ago by the time you're listening to this. And they had Jeff Johns on again. They had him on for the Absolute Justice episodes, but they had him on again for this one. And he was just really good listen and
I'll have to check
so
that
cool.
out. Yeah. I'll have to check that out. I wasn't listening to Always Hold On to Smallville because it's more of a rewatch podcast, and I
Yes.
was
Yep.
watching it for the first time. So now I have been like, when do I dive into that again? Do I dive back into Smallville? We really could just live in Smallville forever and just never come out of this like Kansas cornfield. But I, I, I'm looking forward to that. But this is the funniest episode, in my opinion, of the season.
Oh yeah, yeah. I like his like NASCAR ads he has on his
Hmm.
chest. It's like just so
Like
perfect.
it's pathetic and corny, but like in a practical, like believable way, which is really the essence of Booster Gold. There's something real there, but he's such a pretentious asshole. Like he thinks he's something, but he's really nothing. I love the elements you got here with Booster Gold, and I like how at the end he's actually not so bad.
Yeah. He decides he's going to mentor Jaime, and you kind of get a nice, blue and gold team up there with Booster and Blue Beetle. So really like that. Ted Kord appears too, and Kord Industries and all that. But the main focus is on Booster and Jaime there.
I think Ted Kord is the character that the CW just
Doesn't
love to
care about.
dangle. No, they love to
Yeah,
dangle it right in front of you and do nothing with it. How many Kord Industry mentions were there in the Arrowverse?
a lot.
Like 20 million. Like I was convinced we were going to get some Ted Kord in there, and we never did.
Yeah, he was somebody that I thought would be coming up, as somebody that didn't that was just watching them all in a row, and I thought maybe, not that there was like a Blue Beetle show. I know there was nothing like that, but I just thought maybe we'd see him at some point because, like you said, they really dangle him out there a lot, and then even the movie, doesn't really show Ted Kord.
Yeah, it would have been really funny if Ted Kord would have like remember in Elseworlds the crossover where
Yeah,
Oliver's like convinced he was the first vigilante and this Batman thing is just a myth and I was the first vigilante. Wouldn't it be funny if Ted Kord pops out and is like, actually I was the first vigilante?
right.
That would have been funny. But no, Booster Gold episode was good. And the actor for it, like, looks so
Perfect,
spot on. Like it was.
perfect.
I. It's funny because when I watched this episode, I was like, I already know this is Jordan's favorite.
Yeah, it's up there. Definitely my favorite of the season. I would say it was that and Homecoming are the top two of the season
Yeah,
for me.
Homecoming to me is like I'm not as attached to Booster as you are. Like I like Booster. I'm a Booster fan, but like Homecoming was like the clear cut winner for me because it was the
Yeah.
200th episode. They pulled out all the stops. You got a little Jonathan Kent goodness in there. You got Brainiac. I love the actor who did Brainiac in this show, by the way. I think he is
Oh
so
yeah,
damn
yeah.
good.
James Marsters really
Yeah,
good.
so damn good. And I like that you had a bit of everything. I mean, you even got Kara in the episode before the homecoming thing coming back. So uh I like you said this before, but they really pulled everyone back for the season. I That's the thing I'm happiest with.
Yeah, because they bring Martha back a couple times as well. Um, she was somebody that had left the show and was only coming back every so often. Um, I totally forgot this too, but in the episode where Toyman comes back in Prophecy, they have he has like a evil organization, kind of like the Legion of Doom.
Hmm.
Um, that includes like Black Manta, Metallo, Captain Cold, Solomon Grundy, Roulette, Vortigern. They show him briefly at this table. I really wish I had a better picture of this. I'm trying to find the best way to share this because all of these screen caps of it are not the best, not very wide photos, they're kind of small photos. How does nobody have higher resolution screenshots than this? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
TV owed 10 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, it's on
Yeah.
Blu-ray now. Come on, somebody just get the picture and post it. I'll
This is another example of Smallville saying, we don't need to give you this, but we're going to. And I appreciate that. This was one of the things we talk about Smallville for is this was before there was a universe kind of concept.
yes.
It was just you had a show. This is your DC show. So they put as much DC in here as you could. And you have to appreciate that because how many characters do people know because they watched the show? Like it that would never have been like comic book fans if they didn't like see it like, oh, I know that guy from Smallville.
I mean, yeah, this was a pretty big, I would say, introduction to a lot of characters for me. This and the DCAU are like the biggest things that introduced me to characters. I mean,
Yeah,
what else? What
DCAU
else?
is huge. Yeah.
I don't mean to say this in like a bad way, but like, what else did we have? Right? Like, we had Batman
Mm-hmm.
movies and like Superman Returns. That was it. Like, there was no other movies that were DC movies that would have time to dive into some of these characters, because they just the only movies they were making were Batman movies at this time. And then you had Smallville. That was it. Here they are. I got it working.
Yes.
See, there's Captain Cold, and he's in his iconic look there. We have Black Manta here.
Black
This
Manta
is
looks a little bit like someone put a vacuum cleaner on his head.
Yeah, well, not bad for Smallville. But we
Yeah,
have
fair.
this is Solomon Grundy. It looks like up
Mhm.
there in the left, and then you have
Cold.
yeah, we have Cold over there, and then who else did it say was in this? According to Wikipedia, these are one of them is Metallo. I don't really see him though. Is that supposed to be him at the bottom?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
These
really him.
photos are horrible. Um,
I'm telling you, yeah, it is. It
yeah,
is awful.
they really are bad. But I think it's interesting that Toyman was like the brains behind everything. Like
Yeah,
Toyman is like a really interesting Superman villain because obviously he's pathetic physically. Like he's kind of like the Superman version of the Riddler. And what's interesting in the show though is he's more of a Green Arrow villain than a Superman villain. He and Oliver have more tie-ins than him and Clark.
yeah, that is interesting. Uh, this episode was all about like Jor-El switches the powers and gives Lois Clark's powers before the wedding, so they can see what it's like to live in each other's shoes for a day. This is where you have like Stargirl who's like being brainwashed by Toyman, and then
Mm-hmm.
Lois gets controlled by Toyman, and he pretty much has to wait out the time in order to regain his powers, all that kind of stuff. Um, that's pretty much it. That's that episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it is that episode. But what's cool about that episode though is like the beginning of the episode where she starts to hear everything and like see it through Clark's
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah.
And he's
Like,
like,
you have
what are
to
the
like
you have to
turn this
triage
off.
it.
Yeah.
You have to triage it. You have to say, okay, what's burning? What can police and firefighters get to? What's likely to be taken care of without me? That's really cool stuff because Superman can hear everything. So like if he ignores everything, he's just a jerk. So him triaging it like every day, just walking down the street, is a really cool experience that you would never have gotten any other way.
Yeah. And we had the return of Supergirl this season as well. She actually comes in this episode where her and Oliver are like trying to locate Orion's bow, but she also had her own episode dedicated to her where Gordon
Mm-hmm.
Godfrey was really pushing this anti-vigilante stuff. And actually, we had this whole arc throughout the season of like the Vigilante Registration Act, very
And that's how you get Martha back.
very Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know this stuff
It
is not
did
like
feel
a
like
new
Civil War.
concept, but it does. And we kind of have
Yeah.
Oliver as like the Iron Man, right? He's a
Mm-hmm.
billionaire. He's the one that signs
Well,
the
he
thing
becomes the
first.
face of it.
He even has a scene where he goes out to reporters and says, "I am Green Arrow." Like, this is very, this is 2 years after Iron Man.
I am Iron.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So it seemed like it
Yeah.
was
I feel
very,
like they say it in the same cadence too. It's like
yeah.
I am Iron Man. And it's like I am the Green Arrow.
Yeah, so that was an interesting plot line. Here's one I want to talk about. We also even have the Hangover episode where Zatanna comes back, spikes a bottle, and
Oh,
nobody can remember everything.
that episode was a little too funny. I enjoyed that one. I'm like literally going the whole episode like, what the heck happened? And then it's like, were they trying to find Lois's ring? Like she gambled it away or something?
Yeah, so it's at Clark and Lois's bachelor and bachelorette party. Everyone acts out of character and wipes their memory. Clark and Chloe wake up believing that they are married. Emil is arrested for the theft of an armored truck. Lois and Oliver wake up in the middle of nowhere with her ring missing. Um, uh, yeah, Emil was like kidnapped by the casino owner who was trying to steal the armored truck for himself. Oliver and Lois discover that Lois lost her ring to the owner, who's named Fortune, in a rigged game of blackjack. Lois and Oliver retrieve the ring while Clark saves Emil from the henchmen. Afterward, Chloe announces she is leaving, but Oliver reveals to Chloe that they were the ones married, and they leave together.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oliver and Chloe, I like that relationship. Don't need to think too much about it.
It is
It's
funny
like
because I was actually just listening to Always Hold On to Smallville recently, and they made a really funny point that gets pointed out. We only have like two versions of Green Arrow, but neither of them end up with Black Canary. They both end up with the nerdy blonde who hacks stuff.
that is interesting. So did Arrow just say, you know what, we're gonna copy Smallville? So is Smallville the blueprint?
It
Oh,
is. It is
oh,
in my book.
yeah. Well, it's interesting though because they didn't like at least Arrow developed the Canary character. Like Smallville really did a disservice to Canary, in my opinion. Because when Canary came in, I was like, "Oh, are they going to be a thing?" And
They
then it never
allude to them
happened.
having a relationship. That's actually the episode I was listening to of
Yeah,
Always on Smallville. Was that episode where she comes in, and they allude to like this is who he ends up with, like the same type of stuff they do with him and Lois all the time in this show, where it's like we can't stand each other, but we like each other. Um, and I'm guessing what happened was because he came back for that episode in season 7. I'm assuming when they got renewed and Michael Rosenbaum wasn't coming back and Kristen Crook wasn't coming back, and they had to expand the cast, and they went to Justin Hartley and signed him. They were like, let's just move on from that. Like, maybe they could have brought her back sometime in this season or whatever, but at some point, this happens in a lot of shows. All of the leads start kind of dating each other. Um, and what
out of
happens is,
convenience.
yeah, because they're the ones that
Uh,
they have on the contracts. I mean, it makes sense. So they end
mhm.
up, putting Oliver and Chloe together, and then that's just who they end up with.
And I
Um,
like this relationship though because I
me
just want
too.
Chloe to
Me
be
too.
happy. Like Chloe being happy. And the other thing is, like Chloe constantly pulls away from Oliver, and even like kind of gets kidnapped and like disappears on purpose because for Oliver. So like the
Well, she
fact that
disappeared on purpose this season because she was in a cult, and they didn't want her to be in as many episodes.
Allison Mack in a cult, yeah, that that tracks. Um, but forgot about that. Forgot the real world actually affected the show there.
Yeah,
But
apparently they didn't want her. Like the cult didn't want her being in as many episodes or something, so
but
she was not in as many this season.
but I liked how she constantly pushed Oliver away, and Oliver was
Yeah,
constantly there anyway.
she almost
Oliver
felt
is
she would
such a
almost
good
be
guy.
like she would always pull like the I don't deserve to have like a relationship, happy, all this stuff.
And
So
that made
that's kind of
sense
her
in the
thing.
show though, because she was always fawning for Clark. It was always she wasn't even second place. She was like the like fifth string quarterback on the love string for Clark. So it made sense that she would have that inferiority complex or that neuroses built up.
Yeah. So let's see. We have I guess we can kind of just move into the finale talk now. Let me
Hmm.
just make sure I don't have anything
Yeah, we
else.
were kind of skating over the episodes. Like I was like, I I should have done more homework than like double like watch some of these, but um I gotta tell you, I had fun with it. I remember liking this season. I think season 9, though, I told you, I think season 9 is my favorite outside of like
Yes, season 9 is a good one.
outside of 1 and 2. I think season 9 is my favorite.
Um okay, so let's talk about the Lex stuff. So he does come back as a clone. He needs a heart, which is Lionel was actually going to kill Tess and put her heart in there, but it turns out um Lionel makes a deal with like Darkseid or something and ends up having Lex resurrected. Um we have Lex and Clark have this great conversation, this great scene where they're finally back together and they all remember everything that gets kind of ruined, like you've alluded to. This is my least favorite part of the finale is when he kills Tess and then immediately gets jabbed with this like forgetting thing that like
Hmm.
erases all of his memories. And she's like, anything outside of this room is, like you will forget, won't exist for you.
Yeah, that sucks. It's a problem because the show's whole thing was Clark versus Lex, and so Clark is never going to be able to trust Lex because he knows what he becomes, and Clark is just really just setting Lex up to hate him again. It's just I hate and it's like they're saying it's a cycle that would just always continue of Clark not trusting Lex and Lex taking that and hating Clark. And I hate it. It seems so unnecessary. It seems so contrived, and it seems like something you don't want to put in. You don't want to put something that heavy and like show altering in a finale. I mean,
And the
I
and the
don't
only
like it.
episode he's back for, right? Like this is the only
Yeah.
episode he's back for.
So we didn't even get Lex back. We really didn't get Lex back when we got Lex back. It
We
just
got him back for a scene, and that was it. A couple scenes because we also saw him with Tess, but like that immediately changes. But um, he has this. I'm guessing for some reason in their mind they thought that Lex cannot know that Clark is Superman, so they needed to erase that. But I think what you said is correct of that the charm of the show was these two just and their relationship. Not everything has to be exactly like the comics. That like I think it would be really interesting going forward, just knowing like Clark knowing like, oh crap, Lex knows and he's back, and not having this kind of you know Deus Ex Machina of the memory wipe, where now Clark's secret is safe again, and it also takes Tess off the board, which I wasn't as big of a fan of because I thought she had showed so much growth as a character, and I really liked Tess. And having her get killed off, you know, by Lex was kind of lame in my opinion. But that's like my least favorite stuff of the finale is this scene of her dying and getting him to forget. And we just kind of see it happen. We see like these. I don't know if it was a way for them to just be like, "Hey, here's some scenes of Lex doing stuff," and we can show them being erased because it just kind of shows scenes from like almost like a greatest clip, greatest hits of
yeah.
Lex's stuff as it's erasing it. But don't know if they wanted to do that, and that's how they figured out
Oh,
to do it or what. But
it's like a re-engineering the light flashing before your eyes kind of a thing.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I
We also get a
I
moment
hate
of
it.
that. We also get a moment of that for Clark too, when like he's getting hit by Lionel and he starts right before he flies. He ends up like kind of going inside his head and Jor-El being like, "You've always had the power within you." And we get like flashbacks of him saving Lex and doing all these other things. And then that's when he like, flies for the first time and then arrives at the fortress and the suit rises from the crystal and it is the Superman return suit. And Jonathan presents it to him and says, "Always hold on to Smallville." And that's when Clark flies out of there and we get a couple shots of him in the suit and that's it.
Did they like just be like, "Hey, we have this lying around in Warner Brothers anyway. Like, can we just borrow this?"
From what I've heard, it was originally his fortress was supposed to be the barn. You know, they said it a few times in the show, like, "Oh, that's his fortress up there," you know, type of thing.
Hmm.
And it was going to be more grounded in that regard. When Superman Returns was coming out, they wanted them to lean more into the Reeves look because that movie leans into the Reeves look. So what I would assume is it may have been a WB decision to be like, look, this suit already exists. We don't have to make a new one. It leans into the look that we've been wanting you to do anyway. So like, here it is. That's my thought on it. That's probably somewhere around there is how they went with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. By the
And I
way,
think it looks fine too, because like again,
yeah.
he's not actually wearing it, so
Hmm.
you're really only seeing it in the crystal and then him handing it off. So why make a new suit for that purpose? It makes sense.
By the way, I saw online this Krypton key from Smallville, like the
Yeah, yeah.
octagon piece, and then I was like, yeah, I'm not spending $50 for that. But I was like, I could probably make that now that I think of it. But like, it's pretty cool. I like the octagon piece. I think that's my favorite little piece of Smallville lore through the 10
Yeah.
seasons because
Yeah,
it's
that's the
so
kind of
unique to them.
they've kind of yeah, that was kind of their look originally. It was like the old caves and like the key thing and like the
Mm,
spaceship, and they kind of went away from that to more of the traditional John Williams, Christopher Reeve type of look and
hmm.
sound.
Well, I think the crystal look has kind of stand the test of time. I mean, we see that with the sneak peek of the Fortress of Solitude we just got in Superman
Right, right, right.
2025.
Well,
So
and also in the comics, they ended up
yeah,
using that instead.
and then but Zack Snyder's like, let's make it reptilian and like weird and black because
Yeah.
you know, and like the Calyx to be like slimy black stuff.
We get like I said, Superman pushing the planet out of the atmosphere. Then we kind of get a flash forward 7 years later. We get Lois and Jimmy, right? This is the real Jimmy now.
Oh God, uh, Smallville.
Outside of Perry White's office, and he's yelling in the Great Caesar's ghost, right? We
Hmm.
get Luthor being elected president. That shows up on the TV. Funny enough, it's a 2018 election, so it's not actually a real election of our world. It's off schedule. I'm not sure why they
Yeah,
did it
that
like
that
that,
is
but
weird. Well, it's funny because like every election in like if you notice in like DC shows, it's like you never know if they're a Republican or a Democrat. It's like yeah, they're red, white, and blue, and yeah,
well, I'm pretty sure we know what Lex is. He's a billionaire.
yeah. Well, we don't need to go there.
And you know, Clark and Lois have like this meet cute, and they're just now getting married 7 years later. Their wedding got interrupted by the apocalypse stuff, and they have not gotten married in 7 years.
It's kind of stupid.
Kind of an odd choice. But
Kind of
you know,
stupid.
they're about to run off and get married, and somebody's like, "Oh, there's something happening out there," and Clark's like, "Tell the minister I'll be late," and runs up to the roof, does the shirt rip. We get the Williams theme, and that's the show.
Yeah, I love how throughout seasons 9 and 10 we have other heroes, and then it's like, nope, it's just Superman. He can't get married. Superman is needed.
Well, he is the fastest one, right?
He is the fastest one.
Until
Other than
Barry.
maybe Bart. Yeah.
Yeah, because Bart, I think they cover this in the comics, and I totally forgot, but like, you know, it is Bart Allen. So like the comics did end up the Smallville comics ended up retconning him to being from the future and not just being part of Clark's regular world. So that was kind of an odd choice for them to do that. But I guess they want to make it more in line with how Bart is and Impulse is in the comics. But
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta go back to the Smallville season 11 stuff. I was hot and heavy with them for a while, and then I was just like, all right, what are we doing here?
yeah, I have to read into it too because they actually do like a Batman arc that we'll have to
Yeah.
discuss and all that kind of stuff. But We'll look into it. I own all of the volumes, so that's good. And we'll talk some of the season 11 stuff at some point. But it is written by one of the writers of the show, Brian Q. Miller. Actually, he wrote what episode did he write this season? Masquerade.
Yeah.
He wrote Masquerade.
I think the most unsettling thing I had for the season 11, like right in the beginning of it, was like Tess was this ghost for Lex, and it was like,
I
okay,
actually
so
really
it's not,
liked that. I actually really
yeah,
liked that because I felt like it.
it kind of like was rubbing the things I didn't like about the finale in my face.
Yeah, but for me, it was a way to get Tess back into it. So I kind of liked that.
Fair.
And then they do acknowledge too, like, we're so slammed, let's not get married right now. Like they have to cover
Yeah,
that in the comic too because of
right.
the fact that they made that a choice in the thing here.
Yeah, the thing about Tess that really bugs me is they built that character up so well and did so much work to build that character, and then they're like, yeah, she dies in the finale. I hated it. I hated it. But yeah,
All right. Any other thoughts about Smallville season 10?
it was a worthy end to a worthy show. It was an imperfect season that couldn't have pleased everybody, that will live through history as the ending to Superman's biggest TV show.
Yeah. This is, imperfect, right? I feel like most shows are, but there's a lot of stuff in here that made me, you know, again, we've talked about how this is a show that there at the end of it, it's releasing during the MCU, so it's kind of losing a bit of its groundbreaking stuff. But like from a show that started in 2001, um, I mean, look, it started before the Sam Raimi movies came out. Like that's where we were with superhero media at the time. We had X-Men and the Batman movies, and that was really it of recent times. By the time this movie came out, I mean this show came out.
Yeah,
And
it
if
was
you
almost like
remember
we were
from
getting
that,
away with it. It was almost like we were
yeah,
getting away with being superhero-y. It was
right,
like
right.
it was like taboo to be a superhero. Yeah.
And that's kind of like I think that gets lost every so often because of how like the Arrowverse sprung from this and how the MCU has launched itself, and we're about to be seeing the DCU kind of launch itself. Where we have Superman in a movie with Mr. Terrific and Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, which we never could have imagined back in 2001. And even in 2001, when it's just like Clark wearing a blue shirt and red jacket, making saves on a TV budget, never did I think we would get to like season 4 introducing Impulse and introducing Cyborg and introducing Aquaman and introducing Green Arrow, where it continues and we have our own little Justice League, and then we get the Justice Society, and we get Doomsday, and we get these characters that were very hard to adapt on a TV budget, but Smallville gave it a shot. And there would be at times a very CW type of thing, like the Slade Wilson thing, where it's like, yeah, he's not really Deathstroke, but we're calling him Deathstroke because there's no other time you're getting a Deathstroke anywhere in TV. So
I
like
mean,
they're
to be
just
fair with the Deathstroke thing, they made it make sense for the story.
yeah, they did.
If
But I'm
you
just saying, like
if you
they're
didn't know Deathstroke, you wouldn't have had a problem with it.
but like Mix Pitalik, right? When you look at Mixel Pitalik, it's like
He's not a fifth
uh
dimensional imp.
right. He is just an exchange student who has some magic capabilities because they're like, yeah, we're not going to be able to do the imp. So we're doing it this way because we're on the CW and we're on network
At least
television.
he still has magic.
Yes. Yeah. So, there's it was real, like the vibe when you get to those episodes where they actually start trying to branch out and do different stuff, and you're like, wow, like they're trying. Like, hey, let's try Granny Goodness, let's try Godfrey, let's try you know, all of these dark side characters and try to do something with it here on network TV
I
in our
like
final season.
I like the actor who played Godfrey. He's
Yeah, no,
very good.
he was great. Yeah, he was
He
great.
was
I thought he was good.
he was really good at Nurse Jackie, which was a really good show.
Michael Dangerfield.
Is that really his name?
Yeah. Danger's Dainger.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. A lot of animation, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Doing the voiceover stuff.
I know him mostly from Nurse Jackie, but I think he's a really good actor.
Yeah, what else was he in? Just scrolling through here. Oh, he was in Arrow. Okay.
Wait, what was he in Arrow?
It says Ned Foster from 2013 to 2014, recurring.
Okay.
I don't remember that character, so I can't tell you. Ned Foster, Arrow.
Maybe I got the wrong guy in my head. Yeah, you know what? I'm thinking of a different actor. So I was even wrong about that.
Wow.
Oh well.
Well, he was still good.
He looks exactly like him, I swear. Okay. Wow.
Oh, I kind of remember this guy. Okay. But yeah, at the time it was just a totally different landscape on TV, and now we're just inundated with superhero television. That I think sometimes if people just go back and try to watch Smallville now, they'd be like, I don't get it. It's a guy in high school. It's Freak of the Week. What are we doing? But you know, back then it was a very different time. Okay, well, I guess that'll wrap us up here. We do have more coming up on our Superman Sundays as we get closer and closer to James Gunn's Superman. I think the next episode we're going to record for this is going to be our live action Superman suit tier rankings. And that's going to include
Let's go.
it's going to include the Smallville suits and everything. I found a tier ranking that has those included on them, so we'll include those.
We're gonna do that like we did our Arrowverse villains.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, that's a fun episode. I'm down for that.
Yeah, so that's how we're gonna rank them on the live action suit stuff. I found one that has a great list of all the live action Superman suits. So we'll do that. And then we'll, eventually get to talking some comics, All Star Superman, maybe some other comics as we build up to it. But definitely that's what we have to look forward to. What else we also have to look forward to is something I'm calling Fantastic Fridays, where we are going to be talking Fantastic Four and building up to those. So that would be, I know I kind of want to start with Fantastic Four Life Story. So we'll be doing that sometime soon. And then I have to watch Fan Four Stick, as people call it, the 2015
Doing that
movie.
with Jack, right?
Yes, and Jack and I will be discussing that movie. I've never seen it. I've stayed away from it. That was one of his first heartbreaking movies of this is awful. So I'm going to watch it. We're going to discuss it on here, but that'll be building up to Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four First Steps premieres in theaters later this July as well. So we got a busy July coming for you. But yeah, so that's that. Thank you all for watching and listening along to us here at Supes and Sabers on all of our social media. And we'll catch you next time.